Happy full moon. They call it the buck moon, I guess, or the natives called it the buck moon. There's not much you can still get for a buck, but once a year, the moon's available, I guess. But what's true and beautiful is available to all of us because it's priceless. So it is with the Dharma. In regard to the practice of the Dharma, one question that I often get from folks, and maybe you've said it, maybe you've heard it, and that is, with all of this drama going on around politics and elections and everything else that's going on in our world, how do I maintain equanimity? How can I say, well, maybe, maybe not, and be at peace with whatever happens? Well, we're going to address that question, or I am going to address that question this morning. I'm going to talk about equanimity, what it is, what it isn't, and how we can cultivate equanimity in our lives, in our practice. There's, I think, a lot of mistaken ideas about what equanimity means in the Buddhist tradition, in the practice of insight meditation. So I want to talk about what it is not, because this is what I think this is the image that a lot of folks have in the back of their mind when they hear the word equanimity, and the fact that I'm wanting to practice equanimity. So we may believe that equanimity means that I'm always calm and peaceful no matter what happens. I meet everything with a Buddha-like smile. Do you have that image? I think a lot of us do. Sort of equanimity is this, I don't care, almost like you're stoned. You're just impervious to what's going on around you. Yeah, I'm either enlightened or stoned, one or the other. So, but people won't know the difference if I just sit and smile. That's what I call the counterfeit Buddha. That's not equanimity. That's not what equanimity really is. But oftentimes when I talk about it, that's what people believe, or they'll say, I tried to maintain equanimity, but then I got angry. As if anger is outside of equanimity. A second mistaken notion, which is very similar, which I have no preferences. Who got elected? I don't care. I have equanimity. When I cast my ballot, I just write equanimity on the ballot. I bow and I walk out with a smile on my face. So equanimity doesn't mean we don't care. Does not mean that we don't care. So equanimity sometimes is believed that we are not concerned with the external world. That whatever happens, oh, your spouse left you. You know, they come and they go, they rise and they fall. Just like the breath. Maybe that's true with some people, but with most of us, no, it's not like that. You don't go through a divorce with a smile on your face very often. We don't go through a serious illness with a smile on our face very often. And it's okay if we do, but most of the time that's just an image of what equanimity is, you see. That I'm never upset, so to speak. So let's talk about what equanimity really is, in my understanding of it, and the way I've been practicing it for the last 30 plus years. Equanimity means that we're not focusing on the external world in terms of the practice. So in other words, equanimity is not a practice about how we behave. Doesn't mean we don't care what happens in the outer world. It's just not about our behavior. It's not about our relationship with the outer world. It's about our relationship with our inner world, with our own internal experiences. Doesn't mean we don't care. It's just that it's not addressed. You see, that's two very different things, you say. Because sometimes it's misunderstood, for example, that I've heard people say, well, Buddhism is an atheistic religion or an atheistic practice because there's no mention of God. No, it's not atheistic. There's no belief in Buddhism that God does not exist. That question is not addressed in Buddhism. There's a difference between not addressing a question and negating it, you say. So our practice of equanimity does not negate the outer world. It just doesn't address our relation to the outer world. It's our relation to our internal world, our experience in the body and in the mind. With the practice, the monastic practice, that is extended to a degree to the outer world with the monks. The idea of the begging bowl is a classic example. If you're a monk in the traditional Buddhist nations, countries, you might have a begging bowl, and all you ever eat is what's placed inside your begging bowl. And you never ask for what you want. You simply hold out your begging bowl. So that's an external ritual to reinforce the internal practice. So our internal practice is somewhat like having a begging bowl. We hold out our awareness and we receive and allow and accept whatever falls into the bowl, so to speak. So the monks would just go around. They maybe knock on a door or they'd walk up to someone and they would just bow and hold out the begging bowl. Sometimes they'd even keep their eyes shut. They didn't know if anybody put anything into it or not. And then they walk on. So there's no thank you, there's no please, there's no solicitation. It's just saying, here I am. If you wish to put something in it, I will accept it. Now, bringing that practice into the West has had some interesting consequences. I remember doing a retreat out at Exception Abbey, about 100 miles north of here. I don't know why I'm pointing up, but north of here, wherever that is. And came lunchtime. And, most of us, we'd go to this cafeteria they had there at the Abbey. We'd grab our plates and we'd fill them up. But the monk announced, he says, well, I can't fill my bowl myself. I can't ask for anything in particular. All I can do is I hold out my bowl. So I'm going to go to the cafeteria and just stand there and hold up my bowl. He says, if you wish to put something in it, please do so. Well, one person would put some salad in the bowl. Another person would put some mashed potatoes, a little piece of chicken, some vegetable soup, apple pie, coffee or tea. Not quite that big, but big. But the monk would just bow and bow and bow. And then he went off by himself, and that was his lunch. He grabbed a spoon, and so for the most part, we don't have to do that externally. But can we do it internally? You see, that's really what the practice is the bowl is the receptivity of the mind and the heart, just accepting each experience that comes to us. So it's not about, the practice is not about what we do or don't do in the world directly, unless you're a monk or a nun. So it's strictly internal, and it has nothing to do with the content of our experience. So in other words, equanimity doesn't care whether we're angry or peaceful, happy or sad. Doesn't matter what we're experiencing. Equanimity is about how we are relating to that experience. That's the key right there. It's not what you are experiencing, it's how you are relating to that experience. Are you allowing it to be there without interfering with it, without judging it, without trying to fix it? You see? So, you can't see equanimity from the outside. Nobody can look at somebody and say that person's practicing equanimity or they're not. It's not an external thing, it's an internal thing. You could have a smile on your face and be sitting looking like a Buddha and not being practicing equanimity. If you're repressing emotions or repressing thoughts or whatever, say, trying to live up to an image. So much of the time, that's the way we live our life, and I say this and I emphasize it because it's very subtle. I mean, it's very, very subtle. The way the mind works is we create an image of something and then we unconsciously try to move toward that image. I mean, that's perfectly okay with certain things. You know, if you're wanting to lose weight, you maybe have an image of yourself 20 pounds thinner, and then you keep that image in your mind and you want to move toward it. But with the meditation practice, it's not that same idea. It's not like there's a goal that you're trying to get to. It's not like some image that we're trying to live up to. It's strictly an inner process. So it's about how am I relating to this experience? What am I aware of? How am I relating to it? Those are as far as this practice goes, that's about all you ever have to ask yourself. What am I experiencing? You know, how clear am I on what I'm experiencing and how am I relating to it? So let's talk about what equanimity is and how to practice it. You can think of equanimity as making friends with every experience. There's one Thai teacher, very well-known, Ajahn Chah is his name, and he would say, you know, this practice is quite simple. You sit in the middle of an empty room, and you make friends with whoever walks in. Well, that's a metaphor, of course. Sitting in the empty room is simply sitting in a receptive state, like the begging bowl, like the empty begging bowl, and making friends with whoever comes in the room. That's another metaphor, you know, like making friends with whatever goes into the begging bowl. Making friends with whatever experience arises in the body and in the mind. Making friends doesn't mean possessing it, grabbing it. It simply means allowing it to be what it is. You know, if you have a friend and they are possessive, it makes you want to run away. Or if you have a friend that wants you to be a certain way, you know, if they're saying, I'm your friend as long as you look this way and act this way, that's not making friends. So making friends with their experience is not saying, I'll accept you if you changed, or if only it was different, or something like that. It's like, what's here? And can I simply make peace with what's here? So practicing equanimity, first of all, it's an intention, not a goal. And that's very important distinction. Because a goal is when the mind creates an image and then tries to work toward that image. A goal is when you're trying to get somewhere. Like some people believe that meditation is about not thinking. So they have that as a goal. Good luck. You know? And I've had lots of people say to me, and you may have heard the same thing, well, yeah, I tried to meditate, but my mind wouldn't stop. Well, of course not. It's like saying I'd own a dog only if it would never bark. It just doesn't work that way. Or I'd raise children if they never cried or wanted anything from me. It doesn't work that way. So the mind is going to do what the mind does. The body is going to do in terms of feeling the body. It's going to feel like it feels. There's not a goal to get to, but the intention is that in each moment we're receiving our experience with an open heart and open mind. A goal is something that happens in the future. An intention is something that's happening right now or not. So I just ask myself, in this moment, am I practicing the intention of being aware and accepting each experience in my life? Am I doing it in this moment? It's not, am I reaching my goal of doing, never not doing it? With an intention, we may be on target or not, you see. I kind of use the metaphor sometimes of riding a bicycle. Say with riding a bicycle, the intention is to stay vertical and on the bike. Well, we're never completely vertical, are we? We're always like this. So, but we balance back and forth, and that's riding a bicycle. It's the same way with intention, with our practice. We're never, or rarely, I should say, 100% equanimous, peaceful. There's always a part of ourself, typically, that's not there. But if I can be 99%, So the bike is wobbling, the intention is wobbling, the intention isn't wobbling, the practice is wobbling, but the intention is always the same. But it's not something I'm trying to get to. I can ride a bike if I stay on the bike without falling off, not if I never wiggle. So awareness, or equanimity and awareness both, is an intention. It's not a goal. Awareness is a prerequisite for equanimity. So in order to be aware of how I'm relating to something, I have to be aware of what I'm experiencing, right? Because I could say, when I go to sleep at night, I have equanimity for 8 hours. Right? Because there's no resistance to what I'm experiencing. I'm relaxed. I'm allowing every breath. That's not equanimity because there's no awareness with most of us when we're sleeping. So awareness precedes equanimity. The first step is always, what am I experiencing? The second step then is, how am I relating to it? We begin to practice equanimity when we drop our story around what's happening. And that's a big one. Because most of the time, with what shows up, there's some kind of a story. That story usually is a rerun. It's usually a story that began a long time ago. And it's different kinds of stories. There's justification stories. Well, of course I'm angry. Look what they did to me. You see, that's not equanimity. When I let myself be angry because of what did or didn't happen externally. So I'm justifying my anger. Of course I'm angry. Look how evil they are. Or another story that's very common is the victim story. You know, I've been done wrong. You know, there's somebody done me something wrong song. So paying attention to the story that emerges from our experiences. Or sometimes it's a hero story. Look how good I am. I'm proud of my humility. We make up a story about everything, don't we? Practicing equanimity is dropping our judgments about our experiences. Letting go of the should and the shouldn't. I shouldn't be feeling this. Or I'm doing what I should be doing. I'm a good boy. I'm practicing the way my teacher says I should practice. So there's no should, there's no shouldn't, there's no right, there's no wrong. There's simply the question, what are the two questions? What am I aware of? How am I relating to it? So that's the closest thing to a story we need to get to. There's no should or shouldn't, ought to or ought not to. When you're practicing equanimity, you might be feeling very calm and peaceful, not attached, or you may be very passionately involved in something. You might be very angry. The question is, how am I relating to that anger? Am I consumed by it? Am I believing it's justified? Is there a story around the anger? Am I making the anger about somebody or something or somebody outside of me? Or am I simply aware that I'm angry and allowing myself to be angry? Anger is not violence. Anger is not yelling. Anger is not about anything we do behaviorally. Anger is simply an emotion that we either experience or we don't. If we act it out, it causes suffering typically. If we repress it, it causes suffering. So, when I'm aware and allowing of my anger, it dissipates fairly quickly. Or whatever else is going on, you see. Sadness or anything else. When you're practicing equanimity, you'll be better equipped to make choices because there is a clarity, a peacefulness that allows you to access your inner wisdom. So we make clearer choices. We are more intentional in our actions. And when we do act, we're not attached to the outcome of our actions. I act with clarity, intention, decisiveness, then I let it go. So equanimity will dissolve all suffering if we practice it continuously. That's the ultimate reason we're doing this, is to dissolve the suffering in our life. When there's no suffering, then we discover our true nature. Because all suffering ultimately arises from our unawareness of our true nature. So let me close simply by closing with the intention of, may our Dharma practice be for the awakening of all beings everywhere. And thank you for sharing your practice with us this morning. Thank you.